Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, the community healing truly begins as we cuss and discuss what went down in Morgantown as the Red Raiders fall to the Mountaineers. Next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network. And thanks for making us your first listen on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. And these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. And that's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. So post your job for free today at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions do apply. He's the only Chris Level. I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you. And kicking off another week, of course, still trying to process exactly what went down Saturday in Morgantown, West Virginia. Shell shock is a term that you've used with me, Chris, and I think as we take a listen here to Red Raider head coach Joey McGuire, the same type of descriptor might come to mind. Let's kick it off with the thought from Red Raider head coach Joey McGuire.
First of all, really proud of our defense, the way they played tonight. Gave us opportunity to win the game, at the end. And, we had a chance, a couple of plays, and just didn't get it done. Really proud of Barron coming in with Tyler getting hurt. Hated for Tyler, man. He just, kid can't catch a break. There's a couple of stats when you look at the stat line, and I'm sure y'all have looked at, that really stand out. One on third down, we've got to get a lot better of what we're doing on third down, converting. I think we're 2 of 18. Really proud of our special teams. I thought, we had some big plays with Dre McCray in the return game. Thought McNamara did a great job tonight. He was averaging 49 yards a punt, 54 of a long, and just frustrated. We're sitting here, and last year we were in some of these games and found a way to win them. Right now we're not finding ways to win these close games, and we've got to. Hats off to West Virginia. I thought they played a really good game.
I think the shock to the system is that, there was a lot of chatter about this team all off season, stadium renovations, NIL efforts, and then a lot coming back with your roster. I think, you had I think that's right, 16 super seniors, and you had some kids make a decision. Hey man, we're gonna come back and try to go do this thing again, including the quarterback that just got hurt, and Tyler Shuck. And I think if you were 2-2 right now, I think people would be very frustrated, because I think you thought there would be more, meat on the bone there for you. But, in other words, if you'd have just won all of them except for the Oregon game, or won all of them except for, I guess, the Wyoming game, I don't know. But when you're sitting there at 1-3 and you just look up and you're like, okay, we've dug ourselves a massive hole here. And yet it's 4-0 versus 0-3. It's it makes you wonder, like, okay, last year you were just a few plays away at each of those games from being 5-7 or 4-8 if most of those go the wrong way. And now they are going the wrong way, and it just shows you the margin for error is just right there, whether it's terrible coach, doesn't know what he's doing, don't know how to motivate, don't know what plays to call, can't recruit. What are we doing with time management? I don't know, insert whatever issue you think you may have here versus, we've got it figured out. We are nails. We got this thing turned around, and it's just that much. And so but it's a shock, I think, to the system, because no one thought 1-3, but this is the reality of it. And I wonder, Cowan, if there were a few signs that we should have paid more attention to, that we decided to gloss over, like not being ranked in the top 25, like, almost next to no players on first team all Big 12 type scenarios. I mean, your punter, I think Hutchings was on a few, Bradley was on a few, but even then they were not consensus. Is that, did we have the talent overrated? I don't know. I'm just as kind of confused as everybody, but I think it is. It's a shock to the system, but it really comes down to not being quite good enough to win some of those close ones. And guess what? Last year in the fourth game of the year, you were 6 of 8 on fourth down. This year in the fourth game of the year, you were 5 of 8 on fourth down. Pretty close to the same. However, 2 of 18 on third downs, like Joey just talked about. Pretty rough, especially when the average yards to gain is, I think, nearly 8 on those third downs.
Yep. Talked about that on the reaction show yesterday. If you haven't seen it, as we ran over our keys to victory and how close you got or how far away you were from some of those bewildered, shell-shocked, whatever it may be, Chris. Did you see some of that actually playing out on the sideline? Because I'm just local yokel from, a long way away watching on television, but I was a little shocked that it didn't feel like there was a lot of juice on Texas Tech's sideline, and that some reactions to early adversity, weren't what I was expecting of a Joey McGuire team. Am I just reading that wrong through the television, or what did you feel as far as that vibe? Because I thought there was like some real-time shell shock happening for the Red Raiders possibly.
Yeah, I think some of that happens when Shuck went down. I think it's like, oh my, especially when you see exactly what happens. Like it's not just like, man, I wonder if he's okay. No, you clearly can see, and they bring the card out. I thought you handled it better, as I mentioned. I thought you handled it better this time than you did maybe 2 years ago when you were in Austin, when everybody kind of was like, uh-oh, here we go again. And I thought, and I think Barron tried to, you could just tell he tried to uplift everybody. He was kind of energetic and all that, but then he gets kind of dinged up. It felt like Wyoming a bit, where you're just kind of like, everybody's kind of looking around waiting for somebody to do something. And I'm going to talk about this till I'm blue in the face. I just don't know who that somebody is.
Yeah.
I really don't. I think you've got some emotional leaders on that team, but there's not, and I think the weather, being cold and rainy, just kind of like the mood of everything, and you just can't get on track. You can't, with a drop or, we got him on third down, penalty, or we got him on third down and then, like he's going to run out of the shotgun up for 17 yards and move the chains. And you were just like, because West Virginia did just enough all game long to kind of keep you at arm's length, and when you finally kind of do something, they have a great drive. That you help them with that, with some penalties that they just come down, so it just never felt like you could get over the hump. And this is what I say about, I think we've established, at least I'm willing to say, and Calvin, I'd be shocked if you don't agree, but feel free to disagree. I think your best player right now, clearly on your offense, is your running back. Okay. And so, but I would say, however, he's not the type of back that you hand it to and go, oh, look out. He's a threat to go anytime. That's not who he is. He's a grinder. He's an in-between, and he's a good grinder. Don't get me wrong. But he's not gonna handle the ball and then make somebody miss, and then 80 yards later it's like, okay, let's get going, boys. That's not who he is. If not him, then who? Offense, defense, and I go back to like the close games. Last year, I think you had Donovan was kind of that guy at times. Tyree Wilson was that guy at times. I think. You had a few guys emerge, but this year it just seems like you're just kind of stuck in the mud, man. And I'll tell you, one of the big stories in this one, Calvin, is how many guys you didn't finish the game with. Yeah. Guys that we talked about all summer long. I mean, guys that were talked about last weekend as having one of their best games, like Quincy Ledet, who barely played in this game. Tyler Owens, Baylor Cupp, Mason Tharp, Steve Linton, Tyler Shuck, mean, I don't think any of these guys either finish the game or finish the game healthy. And I would keep my head on a swivel about all of them. Baron Morton as well.
Yep.
About what that looks like as Joey talks to everybody today. But I would keep my head on a swivel with all those folks. And you haven't had Cameron Valdez yet, really. So it's just all these guys that we talked about most of the summer. It's some of them are dinged up or haven't been available.
We got to get Valdez back so we can throw him a fade on 3rd and 2 also. I just don't want him to miss out on that fun. Chris, I have on the left side of the screen, our left, audience right, same story, different year with a question mark. And I want to explain by what I mean by that. First, today's episode brought to you by Athletic Brewing Company, changing the non-alcoholic beer game one drink at a time. And it's time for your game-changing moment on a week. This week, it's 4th and 10 at the West Virginia 11 with 23 seconds left in the game. Tech trailing by a touchdown after driving 62 yards when Baron Morton looks for Dre McCray over the middle but fails to connect under some Mountaineer pressure, with West Virginia taking over on downs for the 3rd time in the game and sealing the victory 20-13. And Athletic Brewing Company is changing the game with non-alcoholic beer that actually tastes good. Great tasting, award winning, and you're going to find more than 50 styles at athleticbrewing.com. But what you won't find ever is a hangover with Athletic Brewing Company. So change the game by finding Athletic Brewing Company's non-alcoholic beer at a store near you or online at athleticbrewing.com. And right now, first-time customers get 15% off your first online order by using our code Locked On. That's Locked On for 15% off your first online order. Near beer, exclusions and conditions apply. Athletic Brewing Company and athleticbrewing.com, fit for all times. Same story, different year with a question mark. And I want to explain by what I mean by that. I really wonder if I squinted my eyes and looked at this team, could I convince myself that we're still in the Matt Wells era? Because a season ago, the one thing that had really changed, I thought, was the one-score game success. I mean, that really from Kingsbury to Wells to now was what you had missed out on. There were many Kingsbury years where we'd say at the end of the year, like, wow, you were separated from what you were or what you are and what you could have been by like 14 points or something. There were some excruciating losses in several of these recent coaching eras. And last year you did flip that script, and that gave you a more compelling season, obviously. But the makeup of the team last year to this year, and even going back to some of the Wells years, Chris, I'm not sure has changed all that much. I think for better or worse, you've got a team led by a defense for as far as it can take you, again, better or worse. And you've got an inconsistent, hit or miss, non-complementary offense that you cannot rely on. And as we get into some of the biggest team concerns to wrap it up here in just a moment, I'll dial back into an offensive conversation because I want to talk O-line with you. But I'm not real sure aside from that, and that's the big thing, obviously last year, flipping the script in one-score games or tight games. But the makeup of the team, I don't really know that that's changed all that much over the last 3, 4, 5 years. Where am I going wrong? Where do you agree with some of what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think the 3 biggest departures from last year, and then they were all productive. Okay, so I don't want to gloss over that. But Roderick, who was what was he, 2nd or 3rd all time in touchdowns scored for Texas Tech player, and I think he was a red zone threat, and he would find his way to the end zone. And then you had Tyree Wilson, obviously, who wrecked shop, and then Trey Wolf. I don't know if you insert Trey Wolf onto this year's team, if you end up winning that Wyoming game, because maybe you make some of those field goals, and maybe that gets you off to a different start of the season, and maybe he makes the field goal versus Oregon. I don't know, but that is one change that I think that we have tried to highlight that I think is worth noting. But you're right, the bulk of the personnel is the same, minus those 3 extremely productive guys that are all had opportunities in the NFL. I think obviously Tyree Wilson is in the NFL, and I think Sir Roderick's on the practice squad for the Seahawks. I think Trey Wolf it was still trying to catch on somewhere after training camp with the Titans. But I agree with you in the one-score games. That's really, if we're being honest, there's very few teams that are good enough and talented enough to overwhelm and win double-digit wise all the time. You find yourself into the one-score games a lot, and that really has become the sport, and especially the two sports that I mess with all the time. Because why was Texas Tech basketball so good in 2019? They won all those, 1 or 2 possession games. And then, I remember in like Chris Beard's very first year, they lost every one in close games. And it was like, you're terrible, whatever. You flip it. Well, it's like 2 years ago, you can't win close games. And all of a sudden you start winning all of them. And it's like, we drank the magic potion, but
hey, this is easy.
Yeah. And I think Joey would tell you, I pride myself in finding out ways to win some of these games. Like this is what my career as a high school coach or when we were at Baylor or just as a coach in general, we figure out ways to win, the close ones. That's where, coaching comes into play. And I think that's what is got him so frustrated is that you can't push the right button to win you that one, or this one or whatever. And I don't know. It's just because I think that he's probably in a spot where you start to question everything about your whole operation at some level when you're not getting the results, right?
Sure.
And yet you have to have some belief into what you truly believe in and like stick with it now more than ever. It's just it'll be an interesting couple of weeks around here. And again, I think the health of certain key guys is going to factor in quite a bit on kind of what kind of trajectory you have here.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's going to be something that's on the radar this week and worth paying attention to. Hate when the conversation devolves into wishing, hoping, praying for better injury luck, but we've been in that situation, obviously, a few times before. As we wrap it up with some of the larger concerns still lasting into another week, Chris, I unfortunately do have to go back to the offensive side of the football. First, today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. And these days, every new hire can feel like a huge gamble. And when we're talking about your business or livelihood, that's not ideal. But never fear, LinkedIn Jobs is here to help by finding the best qualified candidates available fast and for free, all on one easy-to-use and secure platform. With simple but specific targeting tools allowing you to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to consider. They go beyond just resume data by using insights from your job post, your company, and their 870 million member profiles to put your post in front of the most qualified candidates faster than anyone else. So go to linkedin.com/lockedoncollege today to identify the most qualified candidates and connect with them fast and for free. Just like a bad hire could sink your ship, the right hire could take your business to new heights this year. And it's no coincidence that small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. So post your job for free today at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. It's so easy. Even a Big 12 ref could do it. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free today with LinkedIn Jobs. Terms and conditions apply. As we wrap it up with some of the larger concerns still lasting into another week, Chris, I unfortunately do have to go back to the offensive side of the football. I think part of what I was just describing about my Kingsbury or Wells era, PTSD, shell shock, whatever you want to describe it as, was based in, and this is particularly within the Kingsbury era, which is why I've been so frightened by all this talk about Kelly being a Kingsbury disciple, because I wasn't an offensive Kingsbury fan. The almost refusal to play complementary football is just always bewildering to me, Chris. And it was more frustrating with Kingsbury because he's your freaking head coach. It's a little different if you're just talking about, okay, well, what are we doing offensively and what's the OC doing with his time and how are they affecting the clock and what did the defense just get done with and all these things. A little bit different vibe from a head coach to an OC, I understand. But I guess that's one thing that still is sticking out to me, Chris, as, again, just befuddling. It seems like sometimes there's an offensive game plan, and that's just what we're going with, regardless of what our team is or what's happening within the context of the game. Again, very easy to say when you're watching through a television screen, much more difficult to implement. But Chris, where are you on the thought of complementary football in all phases of the game? Because sometimes I feel like, one side or the other kind of gets away from the other. And I don't know, that's something I've been frustrated by for a long time. And a lot of it just has to do with the fact that we've come from an era where you had to compensate for a defense, and maybe you wanted to do that a little bit more, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just still hanging on to some historical ghosts that aren't there anymore as a Tech fan. I don't know. But what do you make of that? Because I feel like that's something that they have that's a box they very rarely checked, is feeling like, yeah, the offense helped the defense and vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, you're a bit disjointed there, because I think you're good on some Saturdays in one aspect and just not quite what you want to be in other aspects, and you kind of just want to be on the row in the same direction, and it just the sport is hard. Okay, we get it, but and I say that. You mentioned complementary football, and you mentioned this earlier, like, hey, we're going to talk about the offensive line. Let's just skip to it here, because I think the first thing that Joey said, maybe to open up it was either open up fall camp or the very first press conference he had of this season. It was one of the two. So this is feels like what, either a month ago or 7 or 8 weeks ago, one of the two. The very first thing that he said, you win football games in the trenches. You win with your big people. We've got to get better there. And we think we have. And I think you look at it and go, have you? And I think that question goes for both, I don't know. I think your defensive line has been better than your offensive line. I think you have, but I don't know if your defensive line has been maybe what you'd hoped. I don't know, and I'm probably talking out of turn. I'm just asking the question aloud because I know how much importance that Joey puts on it, that Coach Blanchard puts on it, as far as personnel and recruiting, whether it be the portal or high school kids or whatever. Big people beat up little people, and they knew, and they still know, and they will continue to operate that we've got to have quality folks up front. And ultimately, because that's what they did at Baylor, they won the Big 12 championship up front, both sides. Go look at the NFL rosters. There's multiple, offensive linemen and defensive linemen from Baylor, from that era that are in the NFL now. And I don't know if you're what you'd hope to be. And I think it kind of starts up front on both sides. So I guess I was using your little segue there. You're not really complimenting each other because I think it is as frustrating as the offensive line has been. And they've had some moments, and I think that they have a chance to kind of steadily get better. But we're ready to skip to the end there and shift into the next gear. I think the defensive line hasn't been quite what you'd hoped either, with the pressure, the havoc, some of the things. And now, Linton limped off. Ledette didn't finish the game. Dateray's not 100% healthy either. So, I'm bringing all that up because I think that's the importance that you and I know this, but Joey said it from the get-go. This is number one, the most important spot, on either side of the ball. And yet I think that's kind of where a lot of these potential issues have either started or not been maybe what you'd hoped.
Totally agreed. And I think that also in a different way defines complementary football. It's not just what your offense is doing in relationship to your defense, but what are you doing for your offense as a play caller? And when your O-line can't protect your quarterback, your wide receivers can't get open, your quarterback is flinching in a clean pocket the rare times they do protect him, then how does that not result or translate into Taj Brooks being fed over and over and over and over? That's, I think, what is frustrating maybe to some fans today, knowing that you're so limited in so many places offensively. So why still try to go with this complex puzzle we're putting together? I don't know, but I'll tell you this as we wrap it up. Here's something to maybe force you to add a little whiskey to your coffee this morning. The play chart, the drive chart for the offense is insane. I mean, 2 for 18 on third down. I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that. I don't know if I've seen much like this either, Chris. as you open up the game, and we talked about being better in the second quarter also, that was a specific challenge for Joey McGuire last week. Aside from the 6-play field goal scoring drive that you had, you went 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, turnover on downs after 4 plays. Then you get into the half, you come right back out, you run 5 plays and you punt the football. Then you run 8 plays and you turn it over on downs. It is insane, not only how you're not able to extend a drive, but how fast you're off the field. I mean, it's minute 18 o'clock time, minute 30, minute 28, minute 27. I mean, that has to be demoralizing for a team at large also, when not only are you not taking advantage of opportunities, but good grief, it happens so quickly. And hey, boys, you're right back here on the bench with me. I thought, didn't you just walk out there? Okay, that must mean I'm back up if I'm Jalen Hutchings or whatever. The defense, again, I think at the end of the day, kind of left out to dry a little too long. And Chris, when we both know that you were limited talent-wise, nobody can be left out to dry anywhere, right? Things have got to be clicking for you to win tough games on the road, but they weren't, and you didn't. And now you're back at home to host the Houston Cougars. I will say, Chris, and you pointed this out this offseason, for whatever reason, Tech was a different offense, in large part a different team, but specifically a different offense on the Jones Stadium turf last year. And I guess I'm just hoping we're getting back to some of that magic. I don't know why that was, but they certainly had some better luck offensively in the friendly confines being back here in Lubbock. So maybe we get some of that this week.
Yeah, Donovan won't come in here motivated at all, I don't think. Yeah.
And we're not looking for another quarterback at all to fill out our room now.
Yeah, and back on your other point, it's funny because, I think Taj had a career high 25 carries. He's never carried it more, but maybe, I think I said this to you yesterday, maybe we start to see 30-plus carries, which is kind of old schoolish. You just don't see that done much anymore, really, at any level of football, where you just feed one dude, because it's, you've got to be, multi. You got to have more guys involved. I don't know. I don't
know that the touch total was. I mean, obviously that's a high touch total, but I think it's kind of the way they go about it. You wait until it's too late.
Yeah,
because
lopsided.
Like first quarter, second quarter. What do you got? 5 attempts. Third quarter, fourth quarter, 15.
And I don't know how much, like I said, I know we've talked about this. The quarterback ultimately can decide what you're doing. I have no way of knowing how much the quarterback has stayed in what was suggested or has switched it and said, no, we're doing this. I just don't know. And then obviously on Saturday, it was 2 different quarterbacks that are getting to make those decisions in the game. This is what Leach did. This is what Cliff did. This is what Zach does. And I think I don't think Neil allowed his guys to, a ton of freedom there. And I can't remember what Cumbie did. I was just trying to, and I think Yost, it was like, no, this is what we're doing. But you've had a mix of both of like the freedom for the quarterback to kind of do what they saw fit, which is what you coach them to do. Hey, this is what they're showing me out there. I can't see it in the blink of an eye. And then I think the tempo thing, you bring up a great point. I will say, though, that the tempo is what gave West Virginia fits last year. And Neil Brown even said, we spent all kinds of time in the summer working on Texas Tech, trying to stop their tempo because it crushed us last year. I think it's one of those things, when it's working, look out. When it's not, it can cause problems because it puts your defense out there. Repeatedly.
And your offense. When it's not, you can also say, look out, except we're talking to ourselves.
Yeah, that too. So, but I certainly get where you're coming from. Yeah.
Man, credit to Neil Brown and the Mountaineers. They got a redshirt freshman quarterback making his first career start, and they figure out a way to get a win. First time in the last 4 tries. So Tech can't make it 5 straight as they come up short and are now back in the LBK, back at Jones Stadium. It's Skullet season, and we're going to have it in the sun. 2:30 kick coming up Saturday afternoon. We'll hear from Joey McGuire later today, so we'll have some of that coming up tomorrow. Also, defensive coordinator Tim DeRuiter, OC Zach Kitley will have that. And then, of course, we'll begin to turn the page to Dana Holgerson and the Cougars. Chris, looking forward to it, and I mean it. You may think I'm lying. I'm sick enough that I am actually looking forward to the rest of the week and getting back to the Jones, my man. Thanks for the time.
Hey, we are sick and twisted, but we're going to be here and sick and twisted. That's exactly right. Keep hope alive, people. It's a new week. We'll keep grinding away at it. I know that those boys over on the Big Red Spread will do the same, man. But have a good Monday, everybody.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, Chris, and appreciate all of you out there in the audience for finding us on YouTube or wherever you got this podcast. Subscribe so you never miss an episode. We'd appreciate that. For Chris, I'm Casey. We'll see you for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.